Hoskin Jr.
Thank you, Rob. OCO, everyone. Well, very, very, very good to be back in Phoenix. You know, we have a strong nation. We have a great Indian nation. We're the largest tribe in the United States. And the state of our nation right now is very strong. And that feels very good. It feels very good to be part of a leadership team during a time when we're doing a great deal and where there's even more hope on the horizon, where there's even more optimism for progress in the future. But it feels even more special when you think about where we came from. When you think about the trials and tribulations of the Cherokee people, you know, we have a great history. And before we were in what is now Oklahoma, of course, we were in the southeastern part of the United States, and we had built a great and strong society, even as the country grew around us, didn't we? We stayed strong, we adapted. We did our best to maintain our homeland in places like Georgia and Tennessee and the Carolinas. And then we suffered that great injustice, that dark time in American history. We suffered the Trail of Tears, in which 16,000 of your ancestors and my ancestors were rounded up and put in stockades and marched across the country. And that great and strong society was ripped apart. But I think one of the great chapters in American history, one of the greatest chapters in Cherokee history, is what happened next. And even though we were a people that had been ripped apart, our society virtually destroyed, our economy wiped away, our government crushed, our people pitted against each other. Even though that happened to us, and even though you would predict that if that happened to a people, that it would take generations and generations for them to hopefully come back, if they could ever come back. But we know our history, and we know that within a generation, in our new homeland, we built another great society, we built another strong economy, we kept our traditions alive, we kept hope alive, and we kept our people alive. And even though we lost a quarter of our population on the Trail of Tears, we built back. And even though there was great strife between us, we came back together. And that, I think, is one of the greatest stories of endurance and grit of any people at any time in the history of this world. And that's one of the reasons I'm very proud to be Cherokee. Now, I visited with many of you. Some of you grew up back in Cherokee country. Some of you moved away at a very young age, and some of your parents and grandparents left during times like the Dust Bowl after World War II. But you know, isn't it great that we have such a large population and that we have the means to stick together, that you can go anywhere in this country. You can go anywhere in all of these United States and you can find Cherokees. And you can find opportunities to have fellowship with your brothers and sisters. And you're certainly doing it right here in Phoenix. But you know, we travel all over the country, and it's great. Everywhere we go, we see people gathering together to keep that culture alive, to keep those stories alive, to keep those traditions alive, to stay connected. And it just fills my heart with joy when we go out to places like Los Angeles and Dallas and Houston. Here in Phoenix, we'll be in Tucson tomorrow. And when you sit down with other Cherokees before long, you start to feel like you're back home. You start to lose a sense of where you are, even though this is a gorgeous area and a gorgeous day. You just know that you're around your Cherokee family. You know you're around your Cherokee community. And so long as there's Cherokees, we can keep that. We can keep it right here in Phoenix. We can keep it in Tahlequah. We can keep it in Veneta, where I come from. We can keep it all over this country because we are a strong people. Now let me mention a little bit about the signs of our strength today. Rob mentioned college education, and Counselor Hatfield brought up the children. I'm glad she did that, because I think the future is very bright for Cherokee kids. One of the reasons it's bright is because of our scholarship program. We have I think around 4,000 Cherokee people on a college scholarship right now. Right now they're in the middle of a college education and Cherokee Nation is helping them get it. And hundreds of those Cherokees live outside the Cherokee Nation. There are young people in the state of Arizona right now who are proud Cherokees, and their nation is helping them get a college education, and that is a good thing. And back home we've got some great training programs. One of the things that I like to do is to attend our welding trade school graduation. We've got a partnership with the Ironworkers Union back in Tulsa. And you can see people that have been out of work a long time, or people that maybe never had skills during their lifetime to get a better job. You can see them going through a program to learn a trade. They're graduating on a Friday, and they're going to work in a good job on a Monday. And they're providing for their family. So we've got job training. We've got college scholarships. We've got job creation right now in Cherokee Nation in Northeast Oklahoma. The largest employer in Northeast Oklahoma is the great Cherokee Nation. And we've got 11,000 men and women working for the Cherokee Nation, and that is a sign of our strength, ladies and gentlemen. And not only do we have those 11,000 people mostly working in Northeast Oklahoma, because our businesses are growing strong and because they're spreading out, in 40 states you can find employees of the Cherokee Nation because our businesses have expanded all over the country. That means to me that a kid growing up now, I hope they stay home in Cherokee Nation, but they can leave the Cherokee Nation and they can still work for their people, and that is another sign of our strength, that anywhere you go, you can make a living as a Cherokee for the Cherokee people. That's a good thing. So we've got education, we've got job training, and we've got job opportunities like we've never had them before. And of course, we're also taking care of our elders. We've got a housing program, housing rehabilitation, new home construction. We've got a social services program that takes the time to take care of our elders. So if you've got an elder that needs firewood, we're able to take care of them. If they need a ride to the doctor, we can take them there. If they're running short on food, we can make sure they have nourishment. That's the way the Cherokee people have sustained themselves for generations, is taking care of our elders. And we can do it today like I know we did it back before the Trail of Tears when we took care of each other. And that is another sign of our strength, ladies and gentlemen. There's signs of strength all around. One of the things that I think is a sign of a strong society is how we honor our warriors. And we've done it throughout history. Of course, today, those are our veterans. And a couple of months ago, I had the great privilege of traveling with the Deputy Chief, who himself is a veteran of the United States Navy, with about 6 veterans, several of whom were from World War II era, and some were from the Korean War. And most of those gentlemen had never gone to Washington, D.C. to see the monuments that were built for them. But the Cherokee Nation gave them an opportunity to travel to Washington, D.C. to see those monuments. And I've got to say, it's one thing to stand at that beautiful World War II memorial in Washington, D.C. and think about the men and women who gave their lives so that we could have freedom today. But to do it standing next to a 99-year-old Cherokee brother, that made it more special than it's ever been in my life. Because that monument was built for him, and he was a Cherokee who, when his nation called, he answered that call. And so many men and women among our citizens have answered that call. We have enlistment in high numbers throughout history, and we're still honoring them today, and we're going to honor some here in this community, because it's very important that we show thanks to our elders, but also to show special thanks to those who gave service to this nation. One other thing that I want to touch on, as we grow as a nation, as we grow more prosperous, as we're able to spread that prosperity to other parts of the Cherokee Nation and beyond Cherokee Nation to the at-large community, bringing things like this event, one of the things we have to do is we have to look after and have the backs of our brothers and sisters in other Indian nations. Because you know, the history of the Cherokee Nation, is one of dispossession. It's one of the United States building an economy on the backs of our people and at the expense of our natural resources. It's about a society that wanted our natural resources when we were in the southeastern part of the United States. They wanted our water, they wanted our land, they wanted all the things that go with the land and the water and the air and how you sustain life. Well, folks, if you've been following what's happening with the Standing Rock Sioux, I think you'll agree with me that history is repeating itself in Sioux country. Because what's going on there, you can say, well, it's about oil, it's about a pipeline, it's about something much bigger than a pipeline, and it's something much bigger than oil. It's about the larger society trying to build an economy on the backs of Indian people. It's about the larger society trying to build an economy at the expense of an Indian nation's natural resources. We've seen this story before, ladies and gentlemen, and sometimes it has not ended well. Sometimes it has ended with our people being forcibly removed across the country. Now, we rebuilt ourselves and we are stronger today than we've ever been. But as we look at what's happening at the Standing Sioux Reservation, folks, they need our help. They need our help, and they need each of you to have their backs. Because that pipeline not only threatens their sacred area, it has destroyed some of their sacred areas. That pipeline will go under the last bit of water source that they had. The Sioux had a vast area that they sustained themselves on through their history, and they were squeezed over time to a small, remote region, but they had water, and they used that water to keep themselves alive, and now that water's under threat. And so I was glad last week when Chief Baker could go and deliver our 4th load of firewood to the people that are in the camps there, that are showing solidarity, that are acting peaceful, that are in that long line of tradition of civil disobedience that sometimes people have to engage in to stand up for their rights. That's what they're doing there. I was proud of my chief for being there. I was very glad that about a month before that I could go there along with my wife. I'll introduce her in a moment, my daughter, and several other members of our Cherokee Nation staff. Donnie Mackey, Kevin Stretch was there. We were there to show solidarity and to deliver more resources, to deliver some firewood. And again, what I saw there was a peaceful people that were trying to keep things together, that were trying to tell the rest of the world that history was repeating itself. It was trying to tell the rest of the world that the economy was trying to be built on their backs and at the expense of their natural resources. And they wanted the world to listen, and they wanted the company to stop. And they got the ear of the president, and they've at least hit the pause button, but the struggle is not over. And there are ways that you can help. Some of you may be able to go up there and lend a hand, but many of you will not. But there are ways to help. They need resources. They need money. But there are ways you can lend a hand, and we can talk offline about how you might do that. But one thing you can do, we live in an age of social media, is you can keep the conversation alive on social media and in your community about the struggle up there, because it's going to be very easy. It's going to be very easy for the folks that want that pipeline to come through to distract the rest of the nation and say, move on, it's just a bunch of Indians, don't worry about it, we've got to get this oil to the country. This is about energy, they'll say. It's about something more important than energy. It is about sustaining an Indian nation that was here before the United States, and it was here before the States, and it was here before that Indian country, or that oil company, and we need to be with them today. And my friends, as long as we stick together, we proved it in Cherokee country, as long as we stick together as an Indian nation, and as long as we have the backs of the tribes across this nation when they are up against it, folks, these Indian nations will be here for a long, long time. A long time. And there can be prosperity for all of us if we'll stick together. So I was glad to be up there. I'm glad that my tribe, the Great Cherokee Nation, was up there, and I've talked to many of you who are very concerned about what's going on, and I'm glad to hear it. Folks, I want to recognize a few people that are very special to me. You know, you don't get very far in public service without your family, and I'm glad to be able to take my family sometimes on these visits, and this time is particularly special because I have 3 of them with me. First of all, my wife, January. Say hi, January. January was with me in Standing Rock on these visits. And first of all, my wife, January. Who is this guy speaking at here? That's incredible. We also have my daughter with me, Jasmine. Say hi. Now, in addition to going to Standing Rock, and when we all gathered around the sacred fire, she really surprised me. She knows how to introduce herself in Cherokee, but I hadn't heard her do it very much. But she was so full of pride and so mindful of the purpose when she was there that she introduced herself to all those brothers and sisters in Cherokee and got a round of applause, and it made me feel good as a father, made me feel good as a Cherokee that a young person had the presence of mind to know that they needed to introduce themselves in Cherokee. I also have my mother-in-law with me. Robin, say hi. Hi. All right. So I'm glad to have them with me. Well, I'm glad to be with all of you. I know we have a full program today. I want to tell you what an honor it is to serve. Now, I'm appointed by the chief, and the people have seen fit to re-elect Chief Baker, so I get to keep my job. That's always a good thing. But I feel like no matter what the circumstance, if I have the opportunity to serve the Cherokee people, well, I ought to do it, because that's how we've gotten this far, is that Cherokee brothers and sisters have found a purpose and wanted to serve each other, and I hope that I do that. And I'll be glad to visit with as many of you as I can today. I'll stay here till the very end, but I want to thank you for what you're doing here in this community. Because one of the great signs of strength of our nation, as I said before, is that you can go anywhere in this country and find Cherokees, and so many places you can find Cherokees that have bound together, have stood together to form a Cherokee community.